timing chain cap off, 4 bolts, 8mm, loosen slightly, crisscross pattern, then take it off all the way. Okay, chain guide is off. You'll notice now we have slack in the chain that we can able to, once we loosen these cams out, we can pull the cam out, and then this will be free to drop through the head. You should wire it up there in case you drop it, you need to get it out again, but we are taking everything apart, so if you do drop it without having a wire on it, you'll be able to fish it through again, but might as well put it on there just because. Manual specs to remove cam cap screws from outside to inside crisscross, so you could start here, and then here, and here, and then 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 here, 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 here. Do it a quarter turn at a time until they're all good and loose, so you keep the load as even as possible distributed on the cam. I'm going to do one cam at a time, and then I'm actually going to end up, I'm going to put the caps back on to retain the bolts, but I will leave the cams out, I think. Haven't decided. If you leave the cams in, some valves are going to be in the open position on the head. Might interfere how you're going to store it. We'll see how that goes. But do one at a time, get the cams out of here, and then we can crack loose the head bolts and take the head off. As you're doing this, it's kind of a tedious process, back and forth a lot. Make sure it's even. You'll see these cam caps start coming up higher and higher. Every turn you'll see the tension. You'll know when they're all loose enough when you can spin every head, you know, with ease without binding. And you'll see the cap has stopped coming up with each turn. It's the pressure of the springs pushing up against the valves, pushing against the buckets, pushing against the cam lobes, putting tension on this. That's why you got to do it evenly, so you don't try and warp the cam with the spring tension underneath it. Once they're all loose, you can spin them all off, take these caps off, and then we'll slide the cam out. Okay, get the caps off. We're going to try and pull the intake cam off. There are dowel pins here at the bottom to index the cap, so don't lose them, don't let them drop. You might want to pull them off, put them in the bag with it. There's only one big hole. I'm sorry, there's 3. I don't know why I wasn't paying attention. There's 3 dowel pins here to be aware of, so you put your caps on the correct way. So now we're going to try and remove this cam gently. There we go. Cam is lifted up. Grab it on the non-machined part just for safety's sake. Slide cam out from under the chain. Got one camshaft, intake camshaft, free. This can only fit in one way. Well, I shouldn't say that. You should be aware it only fits one way because this end here with the timing mark on it has this ring piece here. The other side does not. So you should know it should go towards the timing part to line up. And they are different, the intake and exhaust, but you might want to mark them yourself just so you know that they are different, you know which one's which. You could set it back on here as well if you wanted. And you shouldn't really tighten anything down because it will just try and rest and cause issues. But it might be worth the effort to put these back on loosely just to keep everything held together. Certainly don't tighten them so you're not putting any pressure on the valves. Keep everything in a neutral position, but just a couple threads so you don't lose the bolts. And you don't lose the any of the buckets, shims. Because with the cam out, even with it loose, these shims underneath where you would adjust. I'll show you when I pull the next cam out. I'll get some more close-ups and go more into that. Okay, one more cap to take off. Everything's loosened up. Just give it a little wiggle, and it'll come right off. Be mindful of the dowels. 3 again. And now I'm going to put it there. Timing chain I'm going to wire up here so we don't lose it in the mix. And then we'll slide this cam off. Let me grab some wire here and then we'll get some close-ups after I pull this cam out of the buckets, the shim. Here we go. The cam is out on that paper towel over there on my plastic board. I was going to show you better. These are the buckets right here, these metal components here. One I've taken off. This is the top of the valve with the spring and the spring retainer. This is a removed bucket right here. It's empty here, hollow here. Top there, and we'll just slide over there. If a magnet is nice, or electrical tape covered screwdriver is what I used. Just give it a little leverage to get them out, and that's how you would change them. You have to take the cams off if you're going to do any valve adjustment, if you find that in your valve adjustment. So the same concept with the chain, loosen the tensioner and all that good stuff. I put a piece of speaker wire on there just because that's rubber coated wire, but again it's really not going to matter. And then I'm going to put the other, I just put this on here, this is all super loose. It's not actually tight, just to hold the cam from falling out and the buckets from falling out. I'm going to put the other ones back on, put that cam back on top of this as well. And we'll slide this down in there. so it's not in the way of when I put the cam back on with the gear. That way everything stays where it needs to stay. And then we got to loosen the cylinder head bolts. Oh, my mistake. There's some in here I'll have to get to, so I got to pull that cam back off. Get all the bolts out first before I put the cams back in to hold it. My mistake. First time I've had this motor apart. So down in these holes are bolts. And they're nuts, rather, for the end of the studs. So we're going to pull these off, so I got to take that cam back out. No big deal. And we'll get all the bolts out. There's still some dowels retainer in there on the rod, so it's not just going to fall off either way. So give that a go. I'll take care of that, and then we'll record again from there. I'll show you a camshaft inspection. Certainly not an expert. There's oil on here. Wipe that off. You're going to look for any burn marks or scoring. These look pretty shiny. I think in my mind I'm calling these perfectly acceptable to reuse.